Hi everyone, Ravi this side. Welcome to Engineering Adda. So today I will be discussing about the global exception handling, how we can handle the exception in our web application. So I will be creating a Spring Boot CRUD project and I will be implementing some of the APIs there like post, get all and put and delete, and then I will try to show you how we can handle the exception there. So let's say I have created a user entity and I've inserted certain record for the users. Okay, let's say I've inserted the record user ID 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I have only 5 records with the user ID 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm trying to find out the user ID 6 from the database, which is not existing into the database. Then how we can handle that type of exception, I will be discussing those things here. So let us start with the development. I'm using IntelliJ as my IDE and the database I will be using is the MySQL. So let me open and let me create a project. Let's say it's a global exception handling app. Go to the next. Okay. Let me cancel it. Let it be application and go next. I'm using some starter dependency like Lombok and Spring Web. And for the MySQL database connectivity, I will be using MySQL driver and then I will be using JPA here. So let it include the JPA also. Then create the project. Uh, Opening the new tab. So it is taking some time to configure the project. Uh, it is not opening in the form of Maven project. So let me close it and reopen it again so that it will load as a Maven project. There is some problem with my ID, so that is why it is happening for me. So let me reopen it. So here you could see it will ask for the Maven project, something like that. You can see load Maven project. Now it will configure as a Maven project and then we'll can start the development. Okay, let me go to the source main and let me go to the Java. Here I will be creating some packages like let's say entity. Okay, let's say repo, let's say service and controller. Okay, let me minimize this. So I've created this packages here. Let me create a class called user. Okay, and I have included the Lombok here, so I'm directly going to use the Lombok annotations like all argument constructor, no argument constructor, so that we did not write the code for all argument, no argument constructor, getter and setters. Okay, so with the data we can generate the getter and setter. Now coming to this is the entity class, so let annotate with the entity and let me create the table called user, something like that. Let name it like user. Yeah, user. Let it be like this. Let me create the variables here, instance variables here. So let's say private integer id, private string name, private string. Let's say user has some address and private double, let's say salary, private int age, let's say int age. So let id should be the id for this table and it should be auto generated. So let me do that. at the rate generated value, and the strategy should be auto generated. Strategy generated value identity. Yeah, generation type identity. So I am done with the entity class creation and configuration. Now coming to the repository, let me create a user repo here. So let's say it's user repo. Okay, so this should be interface. So let me change it to the interface, and then it should extend the JPA repository so that we can use the JPA methods that is already implemented and provided for the database work. So here we need to pass these two argument. One is the entity class and another is the ID type of the entity, which is of integer type. So let me import the user class here. Okay. Now coming to the service, let me create a user service class here, user service, and yeah, and let annotate this with the at the rate service so that we can generate the bean out of it whenever we are going to auto-wire or use instance of this class. So let me create a user controller class, controller, and this is a controller class, so it should be annotated with at the rate rest controller, and let me rest controller, and let me do some mappings here. So I'm going to use the annotation called request mapping, and let me map this like a URL, something like that, API. Okay, now coming back to this controller class, I'm going to coming back to the service class. Now let me create couple of methods here. Okay, and then we can directly call these methods into the controller class. So here I'm going to just auto wire the user repository. Okay, so that we can use the JPA provided methods. So user repo, and then I'm going to create the class called method. So first method I'm going to create is to get user by ID. Okay, and here I will, let's say its return type is user. Okay, and what we are going to do, we are providing the ID here, and based upon that ID we are finding out the value from the database for that particular user. So let's say return, going to use the user repository, and then find by there is a method called find by ID, so you can use that find by ID. This is the JPA provided methods and we are directly using it. Okay, let me see what is there. Okay, so it should be okay. Let me create, I will tell you what is the error we are getting here and how we can resolve it. Let me create some other methods. Let's say I'm creating the method to find all the users from the database. So it is a list of return type for this method will be list of users. Okay, and what we are let me rename it find all users find all users from DB, and but we are not passing anything here. Let me import this list, and then what we are going to do, we are going to use the JPA method which is find all, and we are returning it. So here what we are going to do in this method, what I'm doing is I'm just taking out all the records from the database for the inserted users and then returning it in the form of list. Okay, and coming back to the next method, let me create a method to insert the user record into the database. So what we are going to do, we are not going to create all the methods like find all, okay, and save, update, okay, and delete. We are just skipping the update and delete because our work will be done with this three methods. So I'm simply creating a method to insert the record into the database and two methods to find the record from the database. So let me go here, and this method should be to insert the record into the DB. Insert user into DB. Okay, here let's say the return type of this should be user. Okay, and here what we are providing, we are providing the user argument, and we will be saving that to the database. So let's say it is user repo, and then let me call the same method of over here, save, and then pass the reference of the user here. So this method is doing what? We are providing the user reference, and this reference will be providing with the help of the postman in the form of JSON. And then what it will be doing, it will just with the help of this user repo, same method, it will insert that user record into the database. So this is for insertion, and this is for finding all the record from the database, and this is based upon the ID we are finding the user record. So let's say if I'm passing here ID1, then the record of the user ID1 will be fetched. Here we are getting something. Okay, so let me do it git, and then we are good. So now we are good. Now coming to the controller class, let me create couple of controllers according to the method that we have created. So let me create one get API, uh, get find all, something like that I can do here, find all, and let me create the method for it, and its return type should be user. So let me create this user find all list of users, not user. So list of users. Let me import the user class here and the list also. Okay, and let me call the service method that we have created. So to call the service method, I need to auto wire the service instance here. So let me create that user service. Okay, and let me create the user service here. Now with this help of this instance, what we can do, we directly call that method that we have created. So find all user from DB, and what we'll do, we'll just simply return this. So we are done with this get API creation. Now let me create the another API where we are finding by ID. So user, let me pass the ID here, and what I'm going to do, this return type is user, and let me change the name here, find user by ID. Okay, and here in the form of, like, I am passing the user ID in the form of URL. So that is why I'm using path variable here, and I will pass the ID here. Okay, let me call the JPA method, which is find by ID. Sorry, service method that we have created. So get user by ID is the method that we have created. Let me pass the ID here, and then it will return the user from the DB. Now coming to the post mapping, we need to, like, for insertion, we need to create a post mapping here, and let me change this to the, let me change this to the this mapping to the insert, not user. Okay, so I'm simply doing this mapping to insert, and let me change this method name also. So it should be insert user into the DB, insert user into DB. Okay, and let me call the method that I have created in the user service class. So, and what we'll do here, we'll pass the user reference here. So how we can pass the user reference? There is a annotation in the REST, that is request body. So with the help of the request body, we can pass the user annotation. Okay, sorry, user reference here, user, and I will call that method from the service, which is insert user into the DB, and I will pass the reference here. So it will insert that record into the database. So we are done with our development of the APIs. Okay, now let me do some configuration here into the application.properties file. So in the earlier of this video, I told you that I'm going to use the MySQL as a database. So we need to do some configuration for that. We need to configure the URL. We need to configure the username and password, and some little configuration for showing the query. I'm doing that. So I already have created these things. Okay, I'm just going to copy paste from here to save your time, and then you can pause the video, or if you want the link of the whole repository, I will ping that into the description box. From there you can go and get it. So here we need to pass the here we need to use the database that we need to create. So let me brief about the MySQL database that I am using now. So coming here, this is the MySQL workbench. Okay, I install the MySQL database in my machine. If you will open this workbench, then it will look like this. So now coming here, I'm just going to create a database. So let me create with this icon, you can create a database. So let me create with the name global exception handling. Okay, and let me apply this. Apply. So it is created. Finish it. Let me copy this name from here and let me go and paste that in the form of URL. So let me do it here. So I will tell you each configuration what I have did. So this is the URL for me. This is the driver name that we can provide if you are using the MySQL. If you are using the PostgreSQL, you can skip it. If you are using the MongoDB, you can skip it. So this is about the URL. This is about the username and the password. And here I made this configuration as a true to show the SQL query that we are running. So we can, when we'll run this application in the form of logs, we can show those things, which command is fired and what is happening beside. So for that I did this. You can skip these things. You can make this true. We can use this true, and then you can skip all other things. And this is for the server.port configuration is to run this application on particular port. So by default, the port number for this application is 8080. I'm changing it to the 9190. Okay, so we are done with this. Now let me go and hit this, and then I will show you if all the APIs is working fine or not. After that, when then I will show you the scenario where we are getting the exception, and then how we can map that globally. So that thing I will do after this. So let me check the APIs that I have created, it is working fine or not. So here you can see that a Hibernate query is fired. So with this configuration, we are able to see that query which is fired. So if you will use this configuration, then it will automatically create the table into your database, the respective database that you have provided here, and whatever query you are firing, then it will show you here in the logs. So the user in the database, the user table is created. Let me go to the database and let me show you. So the database we have created is global exception handling. Go to the table here, and then you can see the user table is created here in the table section. Now coming to the how we can show the details inside the user table. Let me do something. Let me open a SQL query, and then let me run this command, select star from table, which is a user. Okay, and let me run this. So you will see nothing is there. We have created this field so that you can see this field. No record is there into the database. Now coming to the postman, I will just show you this API that I have created. So come here and come to the controller, and you can go here, and then you can see what APIs we have created. So this is the mapping that I did at the level of class. So this is how our API will be created. Let me hit the gate mapping first, and then I will show you that nothing is there, and then I will insert some record, and then I will show you each of the things. So go to the postman. The application is up on 9190 and API, and then if you want to get all, then it should be find all, I think. Yeah. Let me go there and see what is the mapping we did. So it is find all, and for the other get it is user and ID, and the for insertion it is insert. So go to the postman and Let me hit this find all. So you might not be getting any details. Anything is not there into the database. So that is why we are not getting anything. So now let me insert something and then I will run the get mapping and then we'll see. So let me see what are all the instance that we have created for the user. So it is ID, name, address, salary, and age. So go to the postman. Let me not use the ID because ID is auto generated. So let me use the name as let's say name of the user. Let's say Rajan and name is there. What all fields are there? Let me go and then see. Name, address, salary, and age. So go to the postman. Name, address is there. Let me use this as Delhi. Salary that we are providing here. Let me use this as a 20,000 0 and salary should be S and age should be 24. So I think these are the fields that we are providing here. Name, salary, name, address, salary, and age. Let me hit this API and then I will see. Okay, let me change this mapping to the insert and then here it should be post. That is okay. And let me hit this. So you can see this first record, the user ID one is created and it is inserted into the database. So come to the database, you can run this query to see if it is if the record is inserted or not. So here you can see the record is inserted. Similarly, I'm going to insert couple of records and then I will show you the get mapping. Get API is working fine or not. So let me say it's Ram and let me say the address is same and then let me enter this record. It is inserted. Let me say it is Rahul. Let me enter it. Okay, let me say it is Akash and let me change the address to Bangalore and just insert it. So we have inserted a couple of records there into the database. Now let me see if the get API is working or not. So let me use this mapping which we did, which is a find all for get API. So you can see with the help of find all, we can see all the records that we have inserted into the database. You can see four records is there into the database. Let me run this. So you can see four record is there and similarly, sorry, the same thing you can see here into the postman as well. Let me fire the find by ID command, find by ID API and then let me see. Let me find the first user ID. So you can see it is also working fine. So we are done with the development of the APIs. It is working fine. Now coming to the scenario where we are getting the exception. So let's say we have four IDs. User ID 4 is there into the database. User ID 3 and 2 and 1 is there into the database. What if someone is trying to hit the user ID 5? So it is not there into the database. So we'll get an exception. So let me say. So you can say internal server error is there and come to the IntelliJ. I will show you what exception we are getting. We are getting that no value present there. So how we can handle this exception? So for that, there is a concept of global exception handling. Now let me create a exception like whenever we are finding out the value which is not there into the database, then we'll generate one exception. So let me write that scenario and then I will show you how you can globally handle it. So let's say here we are finding the user by ID. Okay, and if that ID is not there, then what we are going to do? Uh, we are going to use this method or else throw. So if the user ID is not there into the database, then it will throw an exception. So let me use this and then let me create a new exception called user not found exception. User not found exception. Okay, and here we can provide some strings. So let's say user with the ID, this is not found into the database. User with ID, let me provide the ID there, and then is not there in database. Okay, so let me create this user class. So before that, I'm going to create a package called exception, and there I will create that user not found exception class. Exception, yeah. Let me right click here, create user not found exception, and you can choose the dictionary where you want to be created this. So let me browse this and then I will show you. Okay, so let it be. I'm just going to create it here and then I will import from there. So go here, class user not found exception, add this and extend this to the exception or runtime exception, something like that. Let's say exception, and then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a constructor here. So let me create the constructor, and sorry, let me create the other one, which is we have passed the message there. So string message, and then we are done with this. Coming to the here, let me import this class in this class in the controller class. Okay, let me throw this exception. Okay, and coming back to the service also, sorry, controller also, we need to throw it. So these things I was doing into the service class. So what I did, I just simply go to the user service class. Wherever I was finding the user record by ID, I was just simply doing a get. But now what I'm going to do, I'm just simply if the user is not there into the database, what I'm just throwing an exception here, which is a user not found exception. Now for that, and then I just also throw this from the controller also. Now we are good with this. So whenever we are not getting the user from the DB, we are throwing an exception which is user not found exception, and printing the message that this user is not there. But this is yeah, we are done with this configuration. We are done with this development. But how we can handle it globally? So let me try rerun and then I will show you that this is not the complete implementation. So and then we need to do some mapping there, so that it can pick from the APIs wherever we are hitting this. So let me run this and then so it is up on 9190. Let me go to the postman and hit that get API. Let me hit it. So you can see still you are getting the same thing. Okay, and come to the IntelliJ. You can see it's here you can see that you are getting this user not found exception. User with the ID 5 is not there into the database. So whatever implementation you did, you can find it here into the log file, but not here into the postman, into the client. So let's say whenever some client is hitting this API, so he is not able to go to the log file and see. He, we need to display this message to the client itself. Whenever he is hitting, then it should be seeing this message that user with the ID, this is not there into the database. So for that we need to do this configuration. So let me create some package first. Let me create a package called advice. There is a annotation REST controller advice. So using that we can map this exception in that particular class, and then we can configure that thing. So it is advice. Let's say advice. Sorry, and let me create the class called global exception handler. Okay, add this, and we need to annotate this class with the annotation called REST controller advice. So whenever we are hitting that API, if we are getting the exception, it will come to this class and it will ask for the particular exception, how we are handling it. So let me create the method call and it should be returning. Let me create a method to handle the user not found exception. So handle exception, something like that. We can create handle exception or handle user exception. And let me go here. Let's say it is of hash map return type or map return type. So let's say string of string. Okay, and let me import the map here. And it should be exception handler. We have to annotate this method with the exception handler annotation, and here we need to provide the name, class name. So it is user not found dot class. Okay, and what we are going to do here, uh, yeah, we are good. Now let me create a hash map here or map of a string. Let me say it's error map, and it is a new hash map that we are using as an implementation for this. And here we need to pass the argument as a exception that uh, we are facing. So it is user not found exception that we are facing from the APIs. Let's say it is exception. And now what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to put the message and the error that we are getting. So let me do that. Let me put, and let's say it's error message is, and here I'm putting the message from the exception get message, and then simply returning this map. So we are done with this. Now I think we are okay, and let me rerun this application and this, then I will hit the API from there and then I will show you how it is behaving now. So earlier it was giving the 500 error, which was the internal server error, and the log we are able to see here into the IntelliJ. But let me hit it from the Postman now and then see. So this time you can see that it is saying that error message is user with the ID 5 is not there into the database. So this message we are able to see into the client side. So if the client is hitting the API, let's say if the client is hitting, let's say the client is browser, okay, and let me hit this API from the browser. So you can see that the client will be able to see this message, not the internal server error. So here, so the client is able to know that this ID is not there into the database. That is why he's not able to retrieve that from the database. So this is how we handle the global exception into the REST APIs. So this is about the videos. If you like the videos, please hit the like button and please subscribe the channel for such content.